Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Come and take a seat and let's set up some pages for October. I'm going to slow this plan with me video right down. Usually I hyperlapse into about 6 minutes and I don't have time to really walk you through how we're doing it. So I hope you've got a cup of tea ready because this month we're going to take it slow, but we're going to do it together. So I always start with finding the center line of the page that I'm working on, and then I'm going to put in a baseline. So that's where I'm going to put in the lettering for October. So I know where the center point is. So when you're looking at the word October, I'm going to find the center letter. For me, that's going to be O. So then on that baseline, I can begin to flesh out the O for the middle of October, and then I will build up the word so that it should be in the word, should sit nice and centrally on the page. Now, spoiler alert, I'm using the cheat sheet from the DoodleDayDelights monthly subscription box. I've not talked to you guys about this, so there should be a video coming where we have a good sit-down chat about what the journal subscription box is. But think lettering, doodle tutorials, think pens, stickers, mystery gift, that sort of shiz. We'll talk about that in a later video, but one of the contents in this box is this lettering cheat sheet on how to put the words October together in your journal. So what I've done is I've broken that word down and then I've given the guidelines so that you can then work out how to put in each letter using a dot grid as a reference so you can start to build up the word October. You'll have noticed that the first O I put on the centre of my page was too skinny because when I then went and referenced this grid sheet, I realised that the middle O should be about 2.5 dots wide and I'd made it 2. So I've gone and bulked that out and now I'm referencing back to the grid lines on this cheat sheet to really build up the word October. And if you are using the cheat sheet, I thoroughly recommend that you draw out the guidelines before you start lettering. They're there because it gives you a chance to work out how thick, how big, how tall you want these letters because they're going to sit within those handy little lines. Then you can outline, then you get rid of the guidelines and suddenly you're faced with a beautiful lettering of October that you did. And the more times that you do this and the more practice you have with putting these letters together, you'll find that you get a bit braver and you start to do things without the guidelines. And then, my loves, then we can say that we've started to master it. So you'll notice that my October has actually shifted a little bit to the left. Should have put the guidelines in, shouldn't I? So I've gone and put an exclamation mark just to keep it nice and central. And I've put a box around it because above I'm going to have lots of doodles and I'm going to be using these. These are my October colouring stickers for Halloween. I have got a bit carried away though because when they turned up, I already started to colour them in before I thought I probably should be filming doing this and I had to stop. So my apologies, I got carried away with stickers and colouring. What do you expect from me? So it's the first time I've really got to play around with using stickers in my journal, especially ones that I've made and coloured in. So I'm going to start to build them together. I'm thinking about an imaginary square above the word October while I'm doing this because I'm going to outline that and colour the background in. So I'm trying to keep all the stickers that I put together in that central line. When I had these stickers created, I deliberately went with a low tack, so you can actually take these off the page and move them around. They're not going to rip your page to pieces, which, let's face it, we're all thankful for. So you can take them and move them around. So I'm beginning to build up these sort of square of stickers because I'm going to go out and outline around it so that I can colour in for a background. I think this looks absolutely fine, but you know me, it's never going to be enough colour, is it? I want full colour. It's October. It's the perfect month for out there, no shame, full colour, just Halloween spooky doodle gorgeousness. So I'm going to go in with a black uni pin fine liner. This is in 0.5 and guess what? You guessed it. It's in the subscription box for October. I am such a fan of big, thick black lines, especially when you want to add lots and lots of colour. The thinner that black outline is and the more colourful it is, the more black outline you're going to lose. You're just not going to see it. So it needs to be big, it needs to be bold, and the uni pin is fast becoming one of my faves. So I'm going to go in and outline. I'm going to put the box around October because I want to colour the background in. And once I've done that, I'm also then going to go down half a dot space on the left-hand side. And I'm going to put in like a shadow to the box. So I'm just going down on the left hand edge and the bottom hand edge, and I'm bringing that box up just half a dot space before the end, so it kind of looks like it's behind it, slightly down, just gives it another little dimension. And when it comes to colouring in, I can use two colours to differentiate, and it just adds to more colour. So to finalise this doodle page and bring it all together, I'm going to put in a background, and the reason for this is I want colour. I love how it looks at the moment, but a slightly smaller squared background means that I can colour it in and instantly make everything else pop. So I'm going in with a small square that's 2 dot spaces smaller than the banner below. I'm putting in that outline and I'm drawing over the stickers right to the black line that's on the sticker. It then means when it comes to colouring it in, I've not got any gaps, it all looks put together. So I'll get rid of all of that pencil line that I did to bring it all together, which was purely for the October because I used stickers this month. And then I can go in and start to add a bit of colour. So I'm going to colour in the background with a light blue. This is a Faber Castell red line marker. And I want to point out here, when you have a look at this spread head on, you'll realise that all these stickers are breaking up space. So there's that square that's going to be blue. That's what I'm colouring in. But at no point am I colouring in from the left-hand edge of that square all the way over to the right hand in an unbroken line. There's a sticker in my way at every single point. So the bit that I'm colouring in at the moment, I'm going back and forth between the edge and his ear. Nice and small area to colour in, makes it nice and quick, nice and speedy, but also means because I'm not moving my hand and my wrist around so much, that I've got more control as I'm colouring in. The further you have to go from point A to point B, if there's a really big gap between them two, drawing back and forth means you're doing a lot of movement, and a lot of movement equals a lot of effort, a lot of work, and potentially a lot of wibbly lines. And wibbly lines, we're not down for that. This is probably the longest space I've got to colour in from his head all the way over to the right hand side. And you really do feel it as you're colouring in that you have to do this pressure for this straight line to go all the way across and then to put another one underneath all the way across. It can become a bit of a precarious thing. So the stickers are there deliberately to break up that background space. The reason the box is two dot spaces smaller than the banner is because any more, and this movement you can see that I'm doing at the moment, back and forth, would be really large. And I don't recommend it. It's not the nicest of experiences to colour in with. It certainly has the most risk in terms of making a mistake. So whatever you're putting together, if you're going to put a background colour in and you're going to square it off like I have, make sure that the things that are going to be in that square are nicely placed around so that you're avoiding doing lots of long sweeping movements, nice short ones broken up by space, and you'll find that the colouring in process is so much easier to control. And of course, because these stickers have a white border edge, I am also using my Faber Castell to go round and colour in those white edges so it completely merges that sticker into the page. And from this angle, from this distance, it becomes very hard to notice that they're even stickers at all. So the last thing I have to work out how to fix is the fact that I've stuck Frankenstein a little bit too high. So I'm using the same colours that I coloured him in with, and I'm just filling in that gap underneath and bringing that colour, extending it down to the line of the October banner. And then that way it looks a little bit more seamless. I think if I'd have done it again, I would have stuck Frankenstein, the bottom of that sticker edge, on the banner. But hey, you live, you learn. So in the subscription box this month, I provided 4 Bic Colour Kids pens. This was this green that you can see me colouring in the word October for, as well as 3 variations of oranges stroke light browns, because there's a very full orangey autumnal theme for this month's box. So I'm just going in with the Bic and again doing the very similar drawing colouring in style that I did for the blue background. But in the lettering tutorial, I walked you through how you put in the shading on October to take it from a very flat looking word to using the left hand and bottom hand edges to go and add a double layer of ink over those edges so it begins to bring October and lift it up a little bit from the page. Now for the background for October, I'm taking the lightest orange that comes in the subscription box, and I've moved my journal because, again, we've just learned, haven't we, from this blue colouring in box that we were talking about, we want to avoid overextending our hand and our wrist whilst we're colouring in. So I've took the shortest line to colour in with. So instead of colouring October horizontally from the left to the right, I've moved my journal and I'm now colouring top to bottom because that's the shortest width space that I can find. Again, October, the lettering breaks that up for me. So I'm doing lots of little lines back and forth, up and down, all the way along. You might find that when you get to the end of the page, your wrist starts to be at a different angle because it's slipped off the journal. It's now on the table. So you might find that becomes a little bit uncomfortable. Don't be afraid to stick something in there to bring your wrist up to the same height as your journal page. You'll probably see throughout the video that I've got another book that I'm using as a wrist support. If it feels uncomfortable, the person inside of us is tempted just to grin and bear it. Don't. Grab a book, support the wrist, you'll find your colouring is much better and will thank you for it. So the only thing I'm going to do now to finish my October cover page is just to go in with a light grey, and on the left hand and bottom edge I'm just going to go in and add a little definition. It's not necessary, but it's certainly something I do an awful lot. So moving on to my October monthly page. There's lots of stickers and lots of colour that I want to bring into this. So I'm going to start off with putting in my boxes for each of the days of the week for the month. So I'm going to go in, this is going to be a little bit smaller because I need to leave lots of room. I'm also really favouring having a nice big note space where I can sort of jot down things throughout the month. So my boxes for the days of the month are 5 dots by 5 dots. And when I've started to pencil this in, I've started from the right hand edge. So on this left hand page that I've just finished, I've counted back from the inside edge, which means that it's the closest point to the next page so that the boxes come together on the page, and the gap is left on the left hand side. So you can see now when you look at it, they look like they're all together, even though obviously there's a middle of the page. If I'd have counted from the left hand page on the outside, there'd have been a big hearty gap in the middle, and we don't want that, do we? So in my sticker sheet, I have some little days of the week gravestones. So I'm going to stick those in. Obviously, there's one for each day of the week. Now, you'll notice that I've not coloured these ones in. So we know from the start of this video that when I got these stickers through the post, the first thing I did was put it on the desk and dive in with loads of colouring pencils, purely out of a childish excitement for receiving these stickers. When it comes to putting your layouts together, however, I'd probably say I wouldn't recommend it, because until you've seen your stickers on the page with the layout, how do you know what sort of colours you want to bring together? As opposed to what I did, which was just took all the colours and all the pens straight to the sticker sheet. So I did manage to pull myself back. I didn't colour them all in. So what I'm left with now is a couple of stickers that I've already coloured in a frenzy. So I'm going to have to follow that colour scheme theme because they're going to guide me now. But I would recommend, if it's you, when you get some stickers through that are colour in, get them in your journal first. Put the layout together. See how it looks. Decide on your colour scheme. Don't do a Doodle Day Darlings and just attack it with pens like a fiend. So I'm going to mirror the same pumpkin that I previously coloured in. In the subscription box, there's 3 oranges, a light, a medium, and almost a light brown, sort of a dark orange, light brown one. So there's 3 shades. So I'm going to go in, the main bulk of the pumpkin is going to be that nice light orange. And then I can take that deeper orange and just begin to add a little bit of depth to it. So every time there's a black line, I'm going to go in and add a couple of little strokes. I'm going to keep that light orange still so that it comes through, but the top and the bottom of the pumpkin and the sides are still going to be quite heavily orange. And that way I'm just giving it that little 3D-ness before I go in and colour in the stalk with the darker sort of burnt umber, I feel like Bob Ross again, for the stalk, and a little bit of green for the back ends of a leaf that was once before the pumpkin was picked. So I'm going to go in then and add in a couple more colours. So I'm going to use that same green and colour in the drips. It's a bit difficult at this point for me to think, what on earth is the colour scheme? Because I've got oranges, greens, reds. I'm not sure on paper that's a colour scheme, but it's one that I'm going to make it work. In my head, when I was designing these graveyard stickers, they were going to be grey with red, sort of blood drippy font for the days of the week with some green grass. When it comes to putting it into my journal, now that I could see the orange pumpkins and the red and the green drips, I didn't want to add another colour to it. I think when you're doing colour themes, pick some solid colours and just stick with them. Even if you start to think you're losing it a little bit, if you've got a core 2 or 3 colours, by the time you've finished, it tends to come together. So instead of grey on the gravescones, why didn't I do that as a sticker? That would have been amazing. Gravescones. Instead of gravestones that are grey, wow, that's hard. I've decided to use the same colours that I've used for the pumpkin. So the front facing stone is going to be orange. I'm going to go in with my Bob Ross burnt umber for the accent that gives it a bit of 3D shape. And then I'm going to go in with that medium orange and do the same thing to these stones as I did with the pumpkin, which is just left and bottom edge, some little upward strokes, some little flicks, just to give it a bit of dimension. And again, it makes it look a little bit more 3D. And the nice thing with these oranges, certainly I hope in the box people enjoy them, is that because they are so similar on their contrast, they sort of all work together so well. No matter what you do with them, as long as you follow the rule of put your lightest one down first, build in the medium, and then finish with the darker, you should get some really great effects. So every monthly needs a header, so I'm switching to the brush lettering cheat sheet that's in this subscription box, which works well because in the box this month is a Dingbats A5 pen, which is one of my most favourite brush pens to brush letter with. So I'm going to go in and put in the guidelines first because I've learned from my cover page. What I've also done is I've really elongated it this time to fit the page. So it's not going to look the same as the cheat sheet, but as long as I follow the same concepts of following those guidelines, it will work fine. The one thing I did notice by elongating it to fit the width of the page, as opposed to taking it how the cheat sheet said, is that I had to bulk up the thickness of the letters so that it really filled out that space. Which I was unsure of as I was doing it because I was like, oh gosh, is this really the right thing to do? And then when it came together, I sort of stepped back and went, oh, I quite like it. So I'm kind of glad with how this turned out, although at one point I was doubting whether I'd completely made a mistake or not. So I'm going to go in with the fine liner edge now of the Dingbats A5 pen, and on the bottom hand and the left hand edges, I'm going to go in and add in that shadow. I tell you what this reminds me of. This effect reminds me of making it look like it's a sticker. And considering there are so many stickers in this setup, this bit wasn't even the sticker. So I'll go in with a white, this is the Sakura gel pen, and on the opposite sides now, so the top and right hand edges, I'm going in, putting in some lines and a few little extra dots underneath, just to give it a little bit of extra zhuzh, and finding out which day of the week the month starts on, because you know what I'm like for making monumental mistakes. So I'm taking a brush pen, this is a Tombow, this is their orange from their pastel pack. I'm putting in the days of the week. I tell you what I'm loving at the moment, you'll see with my 2s, I'm making the bottom edge of that 2 so tiny, but I just love how the 2 looks. So you draw a nice big loop of a 2, but instead of taking that bottom line all the way over, I'm making it tiny and small, and I quite like how the effect of putting that in. So I thought I'd mention that if you're doing your monthly and you're putting the days of the month in the box in a lighter colour. I'm going to go in, add in some lines, because obviously I've got some spaces. Following the same lettering style as well, I'm putting in that extra line with it. I quite like this. It kind of sets the page up. It sets the monthly calendar on, within those green lines. And then over here, I can go in with my Crayola Supertips, and that sort of separates it as well. So that edge over there on the right-hand side will be for notes and goals, things that I want to do. I'm just going to tidy up that line, just add in that little bit of green so it sort of brings it down to connect it to the month. And there's my big nose. I might have to zoom in so you don't see that again. But I'm just extending those sticker lines for the drips, really just to fill that space out. If you feel like the sticker has got swallowed in the gap, find a way of extending it to fit so that it just looks a little bit more centered and doesn't look like it's just being swallowed by this vast space that is your journal page. So I've extended the lines there. And because I feel like October is getting swallowed in the white space compared to the rest of the page, I go in with the same super tip and I just give it its own little header. I could have stopped here, reference, I should have stopped here, but I do take that black pen and just do a little bit more shading on the letters. Totally unnecessary. I think it's always at the point where you think, when should I stop? And you always risk, don't you, overdoing it. Shout out if you are, like me, an overdoer. But these are my pages for my October setup. This is using all the things in the Doodle Day Delights subscription box, which is now sold out. I will link below for November because the November sales have opened if you fancy joining me for a November setup. Have a great one, guys, and I will see you soon.